You know, the last Tucson was so good, you could argue that they didn't have to do an awful lot to make this one better, or you could argue that they actually have thrown everything at this model. Delighted to have the brand new Tucson here on the channel today anyway, and we're going to find out all about it. Fuel economy, how many child seats can you get in the back seats if you're a parent watching this video, wondering if the Tucson is for you, and just in general, how much of an improvement is it over the previous model. So get subscribing if you haven't already done so. Okay, so starting with the front of the car, you have this really big bossy style grille, and when the lights are on, it just looks so eye-catching. It's like when you see this behind you, it's like, what the hell is this thing coming up behind me? So yeah, that's a great start. I'm glad I have this colour because it's like a silvery sort of colour, and you can see the crease lines in it, and the darker colour on the other Tucson I had to look at in the channel, it wasn't as obvious. So there's the creases that I'm talking about. Now some people are saying fair play to them, others are saying I don't know how well those creases will age, and some people feel it gives it kind of a Lexus feel, which can only make it feel premium, right? Good bit of plastic around those wheel arches, and then down onto the lovely diamond cut alloy wheels. Some might say the most radical Hyundai I've been is at the back, because it looks vastly different. Very important, the lights are on in the car here, and that red strip goes the whole way across. And again, they're the eye-catching details that make it look a bit special. If you've gone for the hybrid version, you're getting badging to tell the world you did so. This premium version of it has twin exhausts down here, and that plastic diffuser down the bottom. I like it. It's old style repeaters for the indicators when you've got LEDs everywhere else. So same with the front of the car, LEDs at the front but not at the back. You kind of wonder why. Good few more creases then down the bonnet of the car too. It likes the creases, man. I just love that grille though, I'm obsessed with it. Now if you've done a bit of research on your Tucson, you'll know that the rear wiper's tucked away under the spoiler, which is nice, right? You can see it there in action. But watch how much of the rear window it doesn't wipe. So I'm just wondering, would it be better where it should be? Aesthetically, no, it looks great, but you can see there how little of the windscreen actually gets wiped in the car. Sight on the Tucson, nearly higher up here than it is over near the front. It's kind of mad actually the way it sits like that. I'm seeing more Lexus though. Now the boot of the Tucson, it's pretty big, right? You got loads of space in the back here. This shelf can even dip down a bit more to give you a bit more depth. The parcel shelf in the Tucson even fits into your car down here. They've thought about this. There's a groove for it that clicks in down here, so that will actually disappear under here. Don't have to leave it into your hall as you leave the gaff or the downstairs jacks or wherever that goes. It'll tuck in down there. Hyundai have also thought of lots, because there's tethering hooks and there's 12-volt charging and there's a couple of lights and there's a couple of things to hook things onto, so it's all good. I would like an electric tailgate. I think you just kind of get used to them. Let's open a creased door and see what it's like in back. This model will get blinds to help your privacy for those little people in your life. But what's the rest of it like? Well, first things first, the leg room. That seat is back for me for about 5'10". I hope I said 5'10" in the last video, otherwise I'm just really guessing. But that's all right, like there's good space. And underneath the seat as well, there's room for your feet, seat backs, a couple of USB chargers at the back, no air vent. Something maybe again at this price, but it's hard to design a car that is one price and then a more expensive price and have vents in one and no vent tunnel at all. It's not practical, but you do kind of go, wish I had that. You'll get an armrest which folds away nicely. Will you get 3 adults in the back of this car, I hear you ask? Well, you will. Just always, it's like any car. It's hard to say yes for any car really, but you will, depending on how big your middle adult is. Good head area, space, lights are yellow, halogen bulbs. Again, give me mixed messages here, Tucson. Love the finish of the doors. Now, some people will find the black is just too bland. Some people will like the cream. They find it gives it more space, but I actually really like that trim finish. The addition of these blinds for privacy for the kids, keep the sun out of their eyes, is good as well. Imagine how much fun they'll have going. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Works though. If you are thinking about a Tucson, I would highly recommend you check out Hyundai.ie, because on there you'll see all the trim specs of the Tucson, how much each individual car is, the engine range. You can even get a quote for your PCP and put in different deposit amounts and stuff. It's very, very good. These plastic things on the doors keep these areas clean, so when you're getting out, your trousers don't get dirty. Good stuff. Now, let's have a little look up front. The storage space. The driver's door isn't massive. In here is massive. Don't forget those Nobby on cars chili bottles. You can get them in the store. Description below in the comments. But yeah, there's 2 of them. There's also tons of space down here. So that's how big under your armrest is. Nice bit of storage in there. There's no extra USB charging options or anything like that in there, but it's handy. Speaking of charging, there's 2 USB connections. One's for the Android or Apple CarPlay. Now, here's a weird one. The more expensive you go in the car, the least you get in terms of CarPlay. So you'll need a cable for the Executive Plus model. The cheaper models will do it wirelessly. One of the reasons I'm thinking for that is perhaps because the screen is bigger, but that doesn't really make sense. And then you've got wireless charging down here. So you just take your phone, plonk it down there, and it'll charge away as you drive. It's very handy, but it is a bit strange that for the more expensive model, you don't get wireless CarPlay. What's that about, Hyundai? I love the seats. Bolsters are great. Little perforations here at the top. Even nicer in the cream leather, if I'm totally honest, but I do like the black interior overall. Nice little touches, bits of chrome, bits of polished plastic here or there. The screens are really, really good, and this feels premium. And dare I say it, again, if you do go for that cream interior, it might feel all that bit more special. This black polished thing with the aluminium for the gear selectors, if you're using an automatic version of the car, is nice, but already all that black plastic is a little bit scraped, so just be careful with that. Mind it. Things like watches banging off it will probably scrape it, so be very, very careful before you scrape your lovely new Tucson. There's a couple of areas here we can see the crossover between Hyundai and Kia in terms of the switches, but it loves playing you jingles, you know. Jingles are good, man. They stick in your head. Where you find that hybrid energy most effective is at really low speeds and taking off from a set of traffic lights. It just gives the car a little bit of an extra jolt to kind of get going, and it's less sluggish than perhaps a normal petrol car would be in that regard. I also like the fact that it doesn't have a kind of hybrid harsh sound when you're accelerating. It still sounds like a normal petrol engine. A little bit grunty at times, but generally, you know, it sounds smooth and not like a strained cat. As you can probably hear there, the indicator repeater sound is very, very loud, so you won't for a second forget that you haven't turned your indicator on, so you should be fine. Although I don't think Hyundai drivers get grief for not using their indicator, so you'll probably be okay on that front. Motorway driving, I saw a very comfortable sort of late 5-6 litres per 100 kilometres. That was at a sustained sort of 120 kilometre an hour, 100 kilometre, you know, in that kind of ballpark range. And then driving around city centre environments and kind of, you know, your urban usual commute to shops and stuff like that, about 6.5 litres per 100 kilometres. Again, for a car, plenty of power, petrol engine, big enough car. It's all right. I don't think there's anything too much that you can pick out at that kind of fuel economy, and most people I've seen who are waiting for a Tucson, when they see that kind of fuel economy, they're happy enough. Now maybe it's because it's such a relatively new model, but this car is getting serious attention on the roads. You have people pointing at it as you drive by. Certainly the light display with your daytime running lights, it really does stand out. I know it's very futuristic looking, and some of the comments on it are that, you know, how well would it age, but certainly at the moment it's capturing people's attention, going, oh, what's that? Oh, Jesus, that's lovely. So at this moment in time, I think the design is spot on. I know some people watching will think it's not going to age well, and other people think, look, lines are lines in cars, creases are creases, and you just expect cars to have them now. And there's also the fact that maybe Hyundai will kind of lead the way, and now other brands will start doing these kind of creases to make their vehicles look a bit more futuristic. Who knows? This car, certainly in the last model, made a big impact in the automotive world, so I'm sure this version is going to do the same. I'm liking the visibility. Even your A-pillars don't create massive problems over your shoulder. That B-pillar doesn't get too much in the way. Kind of surprised that there's no blind spot on this model at this price point in the car. You kind of would expect that, to be honest with you. I find the gear changes are very fluid as well. There's no clunking, everything's very smooth. Again, you'd kind of expect that, but just stating the obvious just for those who are unsure. On these bigger alloy wheels that come on this model of the car, it's at times a little bit a harsh kind of ride going on. I don't personally mind harder setups in cars because I find it generally lends itself to a better handling car, and this for a crossover handles well. I wouldn't say it's not that they're unforgiving or anything like that, but at times there can be a bit of a harshness, and you're going to have to expect that the bigger your wheels get. But it's still a very comfortable. It's a firm, planted setup. That's kind of the best way to describe it. Like, it feels like you're driving something solid. And with that in mind, then the odd bump, the odd ramp with these bigger alloy wheels, you'll just feel it that bit more. Even a little bit of feedback through the steering, not something you're looking out for in a car like this, but for people that have to leave their petrol head days behind them and accept that they now need a bigger boot and room for child seats, at least there's something going on for you there in that. Certainly the leather steering wheel feels very, very good in the hand. There's a lovely smooth finish to it. And to be honest with you, they're the most important things. When you're sitting in a car, I mean, it's nice to know that your car looks good, but on the inside, the things you're touching most often, the indicator stalks, which again, that have that kind of diamond-y pattern that's continuing throughout the design of the car. Your surfaces around where your hands generally sit, they're just as important for you as a driver. On the acceleration front, even there, it doesn't feel overly noisy when you're revving it, and you'll soon be on the move with a decent sense of urgency. So the pickup on it, again, that's where the hybrid part comes into play and just gives you that extra lift off just to assist. Works pretty well. Just don't be expecting it to have massive inputs in the overall range or anything of the car. It should certainly help with fuel economy and that initial takeoff and on stop start and stuff like that, but it's an assist. The lane keeping is really good. That performs, like, the safety tech in the car is really, really impressive. When you go over a white line or something and the things you're deviating, it'll mute the music that you're listening to down quite a bit, and that can get a bit annoying, and you might end up turning it off, maybe just reducing the sound that it makes when that happens, because it's a good safety feature to have. Turning it off probably isn't the solution, but it might get on your head a little bit when it keeps beeping. So Hyundai didn't really have to do a huge amount of work, although that didn't stop them in this model. They just had to make the last model a little bit better, and I think they've made it a lot better, which really means, I mean, there are definite price increases that have to be taken into consideration. The emissions way we're now taxing vehicles in Ireland is just everything against the motorist yet again. When you have manufacturers doing what they're doing here to get those CO2 numbers down, bring in mild hybrid technology, it all helps. But the government always win one way or another. So cars like this, compared to the previous model, have gotten a little bit more expensive. But do you get an increase in tech and kit and the feeling of the car? Does it feel like a more premium car? I think it does, you know, especially when you're up into these executive plus models of the car. So it's not like everything's going on the extra costs of driving a car to try and save the world and, well, tax the motorist. You can also use the paddles on the steering wheel here to change gear if you want. I don't think anybody bothers. The drive is very, very smooth. You'll feel comfortable. The seats have got great support in them, and they're firm enough. Not too firm, but just, you know, the back support in them is good. The adjustment is spot on. The amount of reach in the steering wheel, there's plenty of movement up and down for that. No matter what way you like your steering wheel, you should be able to get comfortable behind the wheel of the Tucson. And yeah, it's everything you'd imagine it would be, and then just a little bit more refined as well. So it's a good job to drive all around. There you have it, the new Tucson from the Hyundai. It's now on sale, and it's a car that has come back with an absolute bang. It's got a lot of tech and a lot of stuff as standard, although the car has got more expensive due to, at the very minimum, the lovely Green Party who want to charge you for everything emissions. We're not too far away from the next Nissan Qashqai. I don't know if I'd pitch this car against that anymore, or perhaps even in the last model. This one is a step above, there's no doubt, but the Qashqai has an awful lot to do to catch up. That said, something like the Peugeot 5008 and 3008 feels like a bit more of a match. Obviously the 5008 is a 7-seater unlike this, but for fans of the Tucson, you're going to love this one. Thank you very much for watching.